Today on Insanity Works, we're going to take this youth ATV, or Kids ATV, we're going to modify it with that custom-made rig and make it run a small lawnmower style motor. It's going to be off a pressure washer most likely. Let's get started. And as always, remember, do not attempt this at home. So I decided to get these symmetrical, that I'd just put them back to back and cut one line. Should be fun. That's tacked solid enough for test fitting. Okay, so I have everything mocked up. That is roughly how the bearing assembly will go in there. I just stole some scrap metal from a couple of chair legs. Okay, so we're going to use this brand new chain breaker, Harbor Freight Special, not the best thing in the world. We're going to make that chain one round piece instead of one long piece. So I have everything tack welded on, and I've taken the chain and I have used the chain brake to disconnect it so I can make it all one round long piece, and then I can put it back together. Okay, so we're going to attempt to lay those marks in as a slot for this style of ring here. And of course that doesn't want to focus. There we go. True to Insanity Works style, we're totally doing this in a way you ain't supposed to do it, so don't do this at home. This axle is case hardened, making it almost impossible to do this. As good as I'm going to be able to get it. The shavings turned a rainbow color because they got so hot. Yeah. Needless to say, that axle was case hardened. Let's try this again. Guess it's a bit softer there. You hear the difference in the cutting. There. That'll work nicely. So we now have two slots that will hold our clips. So I need to solidly weld all of that and clean up any sharp edges, and then I'll install this. You can see I have my retaining clip all inserted, and I have another spot there so that way it can't slide in or out in that there shaft holder. My camera keeps shutting off, so I apologize for the lost footage, but there it is all assembled. I'm about to put a C-clip on the back end as a retaining clip so that that whole assembly can't just slide right out. this whole assembly is solid. So it's all back together. I just gotta pop the chain back on. So I did a good amount of work on this, and I thought I was recording, but my camera shut off. So I'll show you what I've done. So I made that from a 2-stroke snowblower, and I cut the 2 side pieces off that made the frame up and welded it together to make one unibody-like piece. And I tried it out. The whole thing's on a pivot. That tensions the belt. Well, needless to say, it's geared way too high, and I had to swap out the rear sprocket. Original rear sprocket, new rear sprocket. I had to drill those holes. That was a pain in the butt. So now we're gonna try putting that new sprocket on and see what happens. So here is the original sprocket, and here is the one I made. You can see the center diameter is a little bit different, but the bolt hole is right. So now it's time to mount that on here. Now this is a huge ratchet. I have to be careful not to twist these friggin' bolts right off. So I'm choking right up on the ratchet so I don't have a lot of leverage on it. There. That's as tight as I dare and tighten those. That's installed. Now I'm gonna put the new tire back on, or the original tire back on. Now this has a nut on it with slots ground into it to keep your nut from rolling off. You use a pin through a hole in the axle. Make sure you put that pin back in. So there's holes in this axle that line up with those ground out spots. So we're gonna line that pin up and just poke it right through. And then bend one of these so it can't go anywheres. That's all there is to that. So I've used the chain brake and put an old chain, kind of rusty sadly, that I had kicking around that fit this big sprocket and that one up there. This one's wider than the other one was, so my 420 chain didn't fit. I'm not quite sure what this stuff is, but I'm gonna have to look into it. So anyway, she's ready for a test fire. I just gotta tension that belt, clamp it up tight, and see if she has any more power and might actually move herself. Well, it has a little more pull. Still not super powerful, but that's probably a good thing. Just for testing purposes, I'm gonna weld this motor while the belt's tensioned and lined up. I'm gonna make it so I can cut it off because I definitely don't want it permanently mounted. I wanted it so it pivots with a belt adjustment. But I just want to see if it'll even, you know, have enough power to move me around. I don't want to build a belt tensioning system and then find out this motor just ain't gonna cut the mustard. That would really suck. There, that'll hold enough that I can test it without it moving around. Not too much tension on it that it's going to wreck the bearing in the front of the motor. Well, now I just got to weld a top seat on it. Pipes, but I'm flipping it upside down so that the notch comes up rather than in to clear this motor. I'm going to have to trim the pipes up and see about making them fit. I'm going to have to mark them and get them where they need to go, weld them back in, cut all this assembly off, and put a steering wheel on it. Should only be a few minutes. Let's find out. Okay, I've cut off the unnecessary pieces, and now I'm going to attempt to weld it on as straight as possible, just holding it by hand. Let's see how this goes. Of course, I'm going to bracket this when it's done, so it doesn't have a big old weak spot right there. Now, can we get this to I'm going to do this side first, and then use this side for leverage to bend that little straight rod out where I want it. Now, not too long ago, I scavenged a whole bunch of parts off of riding mowers, and this is a random bracket that I'm going to hack up and use as filler for that. Now, let's see if we can bring this out. Well, I ain't gonna say it's the straightest frame ever, but for testing, it'll do the job. I can cut it off and straighten it out later if I feel like it. So I wired up a switch that you have to be pressing it or else the engine shuts off. That way if I fall off or anyone else does, it shuts off. And I just took it for a test drive. It does work. I'm gonna hook the camera up and put it on the front and take it for a shot down the road just to show you how fast it goes. It's actually faster than I like. I wish it was slower and had a little more get up and go on the start. Okay, so I've got the camera on the front of it again. I'll give it a start and we'll see how fast she goes.